What's going on, Dave? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing fine, man. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for doing this, man. Dude, so many people on my stream. You're like the band everybody loves, man.
Really? Right on.
Yeah. We all like there's just something so pure about everything you do, and everybody that's met you has like a great story to tell and about being scared. And we're all scared meeting you, and then it's nice. It's one of those things that it's awesome when we meet you, man.
Why are they scared meeting me?
Dude, I saw you in 1989 at the fucking Roxy with Salty Dog. If you
Yeah.
wanted a video of that fucking show and wanted to know why I would be scared meeting you, I should have you sit down and watch that show for someone, and that might be the reason.
That's a character I play on TV, man.
Man, what year did you move out there to LA in?
I moved to LA at the end of '86, like November of '86. I was 20 years old, and yeah, I had fake ID that I used until for a couple months till my birthday in December, and lived outside of the what was it? The Sound Check. Remember that place?
Soundcheck. I don't know. What was it? No, I'm not sure. What was
Sound Check was a bar on Sunset, and they had open mic nights on Sundays. And that band, the Screaming Sirens, I don't know if you remember them.
I do.
A few of those gals were the bartenders there, and so before we had a place to live, we kind of just camped out in the parking lot behind the bar there. That's where we played our first shows.
Oh my God. What part of Sunset was it on?
It was right there on Hollywood, Sunset and Vine.
Okay, yeah. So I remember I got there a little after I came out and visited in 87, moved in 88, and there was still that remnants of almost 70s Hollywood still in that world, which was pretty cool, man. It was still just filthy and awesome.
It was really, yeah, it was Hollywood was pretty ghetto back then for sure. Not like it is now. I mean, I think Scientologists and Disneyland bought up most of the property in Hollywood and cleaned it all up and kind of scrubbed away some of the character.
Totally. But Scientologists were there when I got, they were probably there when you got there. That's how I got my
Yeah.
First apartment, was agreeing to take a psychology test.
Yeah, no, they were definitely well embedded in Hollywood back then, but even more so now, I think.
Yeah. And you came from Texas, right?
Right. Yeah, I moved from Austin.
And I came
which is a strange town to move from if you're playing music, but that was the deal. It's partly cutting the apron strings, and partly just there wasn't a whole lot of rock and roll in Austin. I mean, a great music town, but at the time, it was like more college rock oriented. The punk scene had kind of died down. Was looking for the next move, and so these REM kind of prototype bands started pouring out, and just felt like we heard there was stuff going on in LA that sounded more conducive to what we were trying to do. So we packed up and moved.
Yeah, it is. It was such a fucking, like, I remember being in high school and just going to this club L'Amour's. You might have played L'Amour's in Brooklyn.
Oh yeah,
and
Brooklyn.
Yeah. I went
there a couple times. Yeah, great place.
And I saw Guns with this band Easy-O open up, and and the older kids were all at that East Coast attitude of and they're like fucking
guys.
Yeah, that fucking do you like that? And I think I skipped like my prom to go Guns N' Roses. They're fucking loose, man. That band fucking sucks. And like I didn't even know what I was seeing. I was like, what the fuck are you? The singer just jumped over our heads and he's got nipple rings on. You're out of your fucking mind. I'm out of here. Yeah. And it was a great metal scene, but you just know when you got to go. And Kim Fowley always said the thing about LA is it gives you a lot of story. And I think that's what's so cool about your lyrics is there's a foot in Texas and a big foot in Hollywood. You know what I mean? That's what I love about your tunes.
Well, I mean, try to write from experience or try to write about things I know so you can sing with conviction. So wherever my feet are, I guess,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a big part of me that's still steeped in that Texas frame of mind, but it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when I moved to LA, Hollywood was like the anthem. Your record wasn't out yet, but Hollywood just said it all. I mean, you felt like Santa Monica, like Boulevard, like that feel. I feel like Guns might have captured the nighttime, but you also you captured the daytime LA as well as the nighttime. And that daytime of just being in your rock clothes all sweaty and hungover in Santa Monica. Oh, it's such a fucking rancid feeling, but great feeling as well.
Yeah, you said it.
You know, and then when we went on tour with Faster Pussycat and slipping away as I was revisiting my old friends back in Jersey for the first time since I left. Just, dude, I think I've played that song at least 1,000 times. It's such a beautiful
Nice.
song. You know,
That's more than anybody else played it.
Yeah. No, I think there was a lot of play, but it was different definitions of success back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember collating that Sten from the Love Razors had that collating place where we got overpaid to staple movie ads together?
Yes, I do. Of course. I still do it in my sleep sometimes, I think.
I did that with you, and the guys and Johnny Crash were on MTV, and you were explaining to me that, no, I thought that you had like an extra digit in your phone number, that you were going to a mansion in the hills, and like, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And you explained the brutality to me as we stapled. I remember we were stapling. Sten walked down in an Elvis outfit. You know what I mean? And we did it. And you explained the brutality of the reality of rock and roll, man. It was crazy. And then we drove you home, and we dropped you off, you and I think Pat or Punky, someone off at the sideshow on the way home. And it was such an eye opener, man.
Oh, you thought it was limos and
limos and cocaine and stripper. There was no work. I really thought you got helicopters and shit, man. For real.
That's for the top 10%, top 1%. You know the reality of it now. I mean, very few of us get to see the true, lifestyle and debauchery that we dreamed of, growing up and trying to achieve that.
But even the guys that get it, they blow it. It's really kind of an illusion in a way.
Yeah. I remember seeing Wasp in San Antonio, and they were opening up for Iron Maiden. And after Wasp had played, I saw Chris Holmes on the soundboard, checking out Iron Maiden, and I was standing there like looking up at him, and it was like, man, that dude was just on stage, man. That's so awesome. Standing like 5 feet away from him, and he looks cool. And then I saw him like at the Starlight Liquor on La Brea in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And he was like barefoot, and he was like the middle of the afternoon, and he was he wanted me to give him $1 for an autograph, and he tried to tell me who he was. I said, dude, I know who you are, man. I don't need your autograph. Here's $1. But it was like, yeah, there's the reality isn't as glamorous as people in the Midwest or wherever might imagine.
And you kind of captured that in your music, and you continue to capture it, man. I'm
still living it, man.
Yeah, I guess it's just, if you do it, you do it. If you love music, you know what I mean? It'll age you, and it'll keep you young. It'll make you old. It'll ruin your friendships and make your brotherhoods. It does so many different poles, don't you think?
I think you explained it very well. Yes.
What do you think about that? Like your friendships through the years with the band, how it stresses them out and it makes them. It's kind of strange.
Yeah. Lots of relationships change, and your attitude changes. It's and Hollywood. I think I don't live in Hollywood anymore. I haven't lived in LA for 20 years. I'm about an hour and a half up the coast. But it's a young man's game down there. I mean, we were kids. It was Disneyland for adults. It was off the hook. It was amazing. I couldn't live there anymore. They say if you have no business in LA, then you have no business in LA. And I kind of adhere to that. It's like, if I can do it from, my little beach town up the coast here, then, and still record and tour and stuff, then I'm okay being removed from the LA scene.
Yeah. I mean, well, do you remember Kim Fowley? Obviously, you did enough time. I'm sure you came across him at some point.
I've met him, in passing at parties, I think once or twice.
But he had said at the time, having seen a lot of the changes in Hollywood, Hollywood is becoming a gentrified Disneyland. This is in like late 80s, early 90s. And as technology changes, nowhere is going to become the new somewhere. And I think he was right.
Nowhere's going to be the new somewhere.
The new somewhere. Nowhere is the new somewhere. This is somewhere now. Everybody's coming to LA, coming here. You have to come here to get these clothes, these albums, but nowhere will become and he was right. I think nowhere is the new somewhere. There's no Hollywood isn't any more edgier than Omaha right now.
And well, for a while, Seattle took the throne as the, place where new stuff was happening and all that. But yeah, you're right. It's not centralized anymore. Like say late 60s San Francisco or early 70s, mid 70s New York, where those were really vibrant, like, well-defined scenes happening. And then the 80s in LA, Seattle. But after that, with, like you said, technology and everything, it's a whole new game as far as, how you promote your music, how you get discovered. Frankly, I don't know how people do it. I mean, because there are so many more platforms, so many ways to get your music out there, but there's also so many other bands have that access too. So it's easy to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows. And I think that's why it's the Wild West and nobody knows, and it will never be the same. And nothing, I mean, because nothing can brew. I can't get, like Junkyard. I had to come to Hollywood, wait for another show. I knew nothing about. I went to the Roxy because it looked like two rock bands were playing, and it was you and Salty Dog. I walked in one of the greatest shows because it honestly was a big letdown after that. It was like I saw you guys and Salty Dog was the first show I saw at the Roxy, and it was, oh my God, this is Guns N' Roses home. Then I went and saw some of the other bands, and it was like, it's not that good. You know what I mean?
That was actually the first place. That Roxy show with Salty Dog was the first time we ever played on the Sunset Strip. We get kind of misconstrued as a hair metal strip band, and that wasn't the case at all.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Strip before, and until we'd gotten signed and gotten big enough that, we didn't have to pay to play, because that was just that was never going to happen. I mean, we played the same circus. You guys played Coconut Teaser and places like that, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you guys, we bounced between both scenes, and you guys were the cooler. I mean, you guys were more with Jane's Addiction and a darker scene in downtown. I mean, when we played with you, and our big night where Brent Muscat decided to work with us and produce us, we were playing with you, I think, the night Todd Muscat played his first show at Janice's club, God Save the Queen, downtown.
Oh yeah, God, I barely remember that place.
And there was just a darker heroin vibe downtown. It just like, if we played the Strip, we seemed like edgy. If we played with like you guys, we seemed like Poison, but you guys were nice to it. You know what I mean?
Well, that was the scene. I mean, Guns N' Roses came out of that East Hollywood. I call it East Hollywood versus West Hollywood scene. Because places like Roxy's and the Scream and White Go-Go Deluxe,
White Trash a Go-Go,
White Trash a Go-Go.
Yeah.
Sorry, thanks. But Guns N' Roses was more involved in that scene, I think, than the Strip too. At that point, there were a lot of interesting bands happening. It was a lot more. There was, like the Scream was cool because you could have like a goth band and a rock and roll band and bands like Thelonious Monster or Fishbone or something. It was an assortment of music, but it all like worked together.
Yeah.
The Sunset Strip was more exclusively, the pretty bands and the hair and makeup scene. It was a little safer, probably.
Yeah, yeah. And it was something I remember being envious of the bands that had perfect banners and perfect amps and lots of sponsorships on their flyers. I just mentally related more with guys like you, and right away I made friends with some of the guys. Remember that band Shanghai, like bands like that I just related with. The people were a little bit more what I was about, and it just absorbed me. And bands like you, there was just something right. I don't even know if it was a confusion, but it was more like bringing where you came from to Hollywood. Because when I moved to Hollywood, I was like, there's a lot of pussies here for coming. It was actually scarier fighting to like what I liked in New Jersey than it is in Hollywood. You know what I mean? It was actually scarier for me in Jersey. You know what I mean? Guys are like, you better listen to Rossington Collins, not Aerosmith. You know what I mean? And just like, not even Skinner. It was like people would get in fist fights where I grew up over Rossington Collins versus Skinner. And you know what I mean? And that's what I think you guys and G&R mix that with Hollywood and Hanoi Rocks. And that's where this weird, cool.
Well, I think you said something there about we brought a little of where we came from to Hollywood, as opposed to some of the maybe strip bands. And I don't mean to whitewash the whole bunch, but we're more, they were catering to what was going on. You know, they were fitting into what was happening there rather than bringing their own flavor, maybe.
Yeah, they were documenting a different type of Los Angeles, and maybe even, and we love them, but a Van Halen Los Angeles. You know what I mean? I mean, great bands. Van Halen are a great band, and so are the Doors, but the Doors are way darker, and they both document different parts of Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
You know, and it's just how you see it. I mean, when I got to Hollywood, I thought it was going to be all shiny and Mickey Mouse, you know, and I was like, whoa, this is, and then I started to figure it out. It actually was easier to navigate than I thought it would be, because it was darker and more real.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the first place we lived right next door to, it was like a duplex sort of thing, and moved next door to this guy named Spider and his girlfriend. And he was like a kind of a big leaguer in the White Fence gang.
Oh yeah.
And so we hooked up with him, and like we were gold in that neighborhood. You know, it's like, don't mess with these guys, they're cool, you know. And so it's good to have the local neighborhood gang, you know, have your back.
And that was part of it. I remember we rehearsed in Hollywood and Western and White Fence, 18th Street. You're like, this is a part of, and eventually it bleeds into the way you sound rehearsing. And I mean, there's no way you're going to be that pretty and live in Hollywood and Western studios. I mean, that was a way of
probably
life.
Some osmosis there, yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Great place, though, wasn't it? Above the billiards,
dude. It was the best place, and you had to have done it. I remember when I went there, this bunch of hippie weirdos was moving out. This goth woman, it was Concrete Blonde, and we moved into their room. Another band that documented Hollywood, and there was this. Someone said, go in that's Cecil B. DeMille's old office. And I didn't know who the fuck Cecil B. DeMille was as a kid. You know, I mean, I liked Rocky films. And someone said, I cry the tears of pain for This Is Hollywood. I just always remember that was written on the wall. Like,
that's great.
Oh, that's some shit. And people were jumping out the windows. And remember Gary, the crazy guy that ran that place?
Vaguely, yeah.
And Gary from Switchblade, and we'd all have to see his terrible band because we didn't pay rent. It was a wild scene in that building, man.
Yeah, that place was sticky.
So you guys rehearsed there?
Yeah.
Okay, I probably moved in. You probably got some Lillian Way Geffen Records label type nice rehearsal spaces. Yeah,
we got the good room at a Hollywood Western. You never saw the good room, huh?
I don't think I ever saw the good. I think the best room I saw was the Wilds room with Sid's, that the two naked chicks on his drum cover. You know, had that bass drum, like with the two chicks on the cover.
I'm fucking with you, of course. There was no good room.
No good room. Okay.
It was all the same, you know, Fleabag hotel kind of vibe. I think, you know, one or more of us were staying in that room because we had lockout, you know, at one point or another while we were there.
Yeah. But did you, I mean, you liked it, right? Didn't you feel like you were somewhere? I felt like it. Did you like it?
Oh, I could give a shit, man, about rehearsal places. You know, I mean, you're rehearsing, you know, you're just trying to work the songs out and stuff. You know, I felt funnier being in really nice places. You know, it's like, we don't need all this.
Yeah, I still feel that way because of Hollywood and Western. Yeah, I could still sleep anywhere. When people argue about sleep, I could sleep in the fucking cubbyhole because of all that time that I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was so many little... What were you saying? Yeah,
I was just gonna say we were rehearsing a place now in North Hollywood that's, you know, not much more glamorous than old Hollywood Western rehearsal place.
Oh man,
it's, you need, I just, you just need a PA. You just need to work the
Yeah.
songs out, for us personally, at least.
Well, it was energy too. You walk across the street, you get a burrito. People stop by, bring beers, go do their drugs, stop by your room, and you're the constant. And it
The
feeds the.
T&T burger across the street,
Oh,
get a burger, get some crack, you're set.
That was a scary march for me as a kid, man, across the street, because we'd stay there all night, and because you didn't need to leave. It was enough going on in that building to not have to leave. You know what I mean? People just go from until 18th Street came in. I remember one of the guys being chased by 18th Street. The guy from Lightning Gypsy Lover, I think, was the band, and they were going to kill him. And he climbed out on the balcony on the side of Western and was throwing pennies at cop cars to get them to come up. Like, wow, man.
Well, that was Hollywood back then, though. I mean, there was shit going on all the time. I mean, you know that. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
And it didn't matter what night of the week it was. Sunday night was just as crazy as Friday night. There was always something going on somewhere. I mean, Jet Boy used to have an apartment on Franklin there around Orange, and they'd have parties during the weekdays all the time. Lemmy would be there, or somebody. It was like always something going on.
It was like heavy. It was like hard rock Saturday Night Fever every night.
Yeah,
it was just like this. Do you remember writing Hollywood? Because you everything we're talking about, you encapsulated in under 4 minutes. Do you remember writing that tune?
Well, me and the guitar player I moved out with wrote that together, and that was pretty fresh into things. We wrote that probably a month into arriving, so it was like kind of a fresh, first take. That was a song, just kind of our initial reaction.
Man, and you have so many you document things so well. What's your writing process with the band? I know it probably changes, but what's
by hook or by crook, man? The way it usually goes is, since I don't play guitar, if I write, I write lines, lines that rhyme that I think sound cool or whatever, and I try to make them cohesive, and then the guitar player will have maybe he'll have a melody line for a chorus, or an idea, a title for the song or something that I can feed off of, so it's definitely a collaboration. Just at the end of the day, it has to make sense to me, and it has to be something I can stand behind, something I can sing, like I said earlier, with conviction, like it's not bullshit. Because I think that's the best way to do it. People tend to respond to things they can relate to, or things that sound authentic to them. So, sing about what you know.
I mean, dude, I was listening to High Water today just before we talked again, and it's just as good as the first album. And that's the latest album. It's just tried and true. And that I mean, it's more adventurous. Not that AC/DC is not adventurous, but it seems, there's growth, but it's the same realness. It's crazy. And
well, you have to remember also that there was 26 years between the second album, 6, 7s, and 9s, and High Water. So
yeah,
26. I mean, there wasn't a lot of albums in between to experiment with our sound.
That's true.
Or do some jazz exploration album, or something like that.
Yeah.
Stick with what got you there in the first place.
Yeah.
And we go off the beaten path, a little bit here and there. Punk it up a little bit sometimes, or add a little country blues. But it's just rock and roll to me at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys, a lot of people talk about you guys and Motorhead. It's a similar thing where it's just the music's great, the shirts are great. It's almost a way of life, man.
I actually talking about those parties Jet Boy used to have. I saw Lemmy one night, and I told him straight up. I said, "Yeah." They played at the Santa Monica Civic not long after I'd moved there, and we had a flyer from the show, and we stole the spade and the flower thing, straight off of that flyer. And I told Lemmy that, and he was like, "Hey, mate, good luck to you." Then he gave a fuck, He was cool. There you go.
I mean, dude, there's no other band besides Motorhead or Junkyard. You could feel like a dick as a grown 50-year-old man putting anything else other than this or Motorhead on the back of your. It's so iconic, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's more of a secret society than Motorhead, man. It's just so mean. Hey, and what's the secret to keeping it together? I know people have come, gone, passed away. You've dealt with so much, but keeping it together now after all these years in the brotherhood, because I've talked with Pat and he loves you. Like, what's the secret to you to keeping the friendships and band together?
Well, I mean, we're probably luckier than most bands in that we all generally get along, like genuinely.
Yeah.
So nothing is forced. We have our scraps, but they're not, few and far between. And there's just never been, we never hit a wall where there was animosity or any of that. Like I said, we were probably just lucky. We like what we do. As far as longevity, I think we didn't pigeonhole ourselves too much into a corner as far as the way we looked and the way, so the theme of our music, it's, I like to think that it kind of stands the test of time, so it's always still semi-relevant. I don't know. And we just, for me, I just didn't know what else to do. I mean, I do other things. I do construction and, I cook, I do whatever I have to do to make ends meet. But, I'm a rock and roller. It's what I am. And I don't know what else to do. So I keep doing this.
I love it, man.
And as long as I can get out and, there's 40 or 50 paid customers in front of me, then I feel pretty blessed,
That's awesome, man. And I have to tell you, I don't know if you probably know Tommy Black from the Viper Room and Jamie from the Viper Room.
Yeah.
Many conversations with these type dudes and those dudes specifically, where they come up and they see you play after they go, dude, is this better than it was? What, like, you know what I mean? They're like, it's fucking, I'm like, they are, and it's like, there's so many bands you see later, you go, that wasn't as good as I thought. But like, you're like, this makes more sense now, actually. That's a Tommy Black and Jamie quote, that it makes sense. Then they see 1,000 bands at the Viper Room, 1 billion bands. It makes more sense now. That's a common thing I hear about Junkyard and feel.
That means a lot. That's especially resonates when it's people like that who do see 50 bands a week and 1,000 bands a year, and it becomes like gray or white noise.
So you get why that's so. I'm glad you get why that's so huge.
So somebody who's that steeped in it to stand out in their eyes is huge to me. That's awesome. It's cool. And it's if we're better than we were then, I don't know. We were probably a little more sober,
as are the people watching.
And it's like if you're a plumber for 30 years, you're a goddamn pretty good plumber. You walk into a room and you hear a tick in the pipe or something, you diagnose, you know what you're doing. So I guess by doing it, you become professional at it. I never considered myself a professional musician, but I guess at this point in time, that's what I am, because I can walk in a room and fix the problem.
Well,
like a good plumber.
The one thing I do disagree, the only thing I'll disagree on you is as with myself, I think one thing we really share is my fire's not out, and that can make my life and ruin my life in the same breath. Your fire's not out. Pat's fire's not out. Like, when the fire goes out and they go up there, that's when it's a strange thing. Like, I mean,
yeah. Well, also, we're pretty high energy, and I feel like we still bring the energy. I don't think we've lost much step as far as like trying to give 100% every night. And I don't know if I would want to continue to do it if I couldn't, pour everything into it every night. I think that's when bands get burnt out.
Yeah.
Also, we don't have the luxury because, rock and roll is not that huge anymore. So, for bands like us, at least, there's not the, 6-week, 8-week tours, consecutive days, on the road, because there's not enough venues. There's not enough, you're not going to make enough money for the overhead to pay for your motel room or whatever if you're playing for 5 people in Tucumcari, New Mexico on a Tuesday night. It's just, so we do the weekend fly out things and play 2 or 3 shows in a certain area, come back home and do it again the next week or 2 weeks after. And, it keeps us fresh.
Yeah.
And,
it just works.
We're not burnt out.
Man, one question I've been dying to ask you, dude, is like, who were you in high school? What were you listening to? How'd singing, how the whole thing? I'd love to, like, you're this huge figure to all of us. Who were you in high school?
Well, they'll probably disappoint, my rock fans, but, I kind of listened to all my heavy metal and stuff in 7th and 8th grade, probably 9th grade. And by probably my sophomore year in high school, I got into punk rock because, I wanted to be a musician, and I like the attitude of the punk scene. Austin had a great punk scene, and what it did for me was open my eyes to say, I'd go to these shows and I'd see these guys that were a couple years older than me, and some of them could play, some of them could barely play, but they were fucking up there. They were up there on stage and they were doing it. I said, well, man, if they can do it, I can do it. And I think that's a lot of, well, I know the guys in my band started that way, started in punk bands and got their chops and eventually learned how to play their instruments, and just went back to the music we started out loving, and just brought a little of that attitude with us. But so by high school, I was straight up punk rock. I was listening to a lot of the West Coast punk bands, like X and Circle Jerks and Black Flag and Fear and all that, and the UK stuff, East Coast too. But yeah, I was pretty much straight punk rock during those years.
Which is what Junkyard had, that fire of just something else other than AC/DC. I mean, it wasn't like another great band. It sounded like AC/DC, but there was it was such a melting pot of things. How did that come about?
The first time I heard AC/DC was probably like 7th grade, and this older kid, his name was Daryl or something, and he drove a Camaro, and
I love it. Daryl.
He had one of those like mesh shirts cut at the abdomen,
Oh yeah.
like the feather roach clip earring on the back of his John Deere hat. Yeah, that dude. And he said, we were at his house smoking weed or something. He was like, hey man, I don't like punk rock or anything, but you got to check these guys out. And he played me If You Want Blood, the live album. And I was like, holy shit. But that was considered punk rock back then, to that guy.
Yeah.
Just because, why? I don't know. Angus had short hair. Or there was something, that they didn't fit the mold, but it was great fucking rock and roll. But, but punk always had that attitude that we tried to bring to the Junkyard shows, which is, you're not above the audience, you're not on a pedestal sometimes you are physically, with barriers and all that. But in punk rock, your face, you're right there next to the crowd. They're in your face. You're breathing on. They're breathing on you. They're spilling beer on you. You're sweating on them. It's a beautiful fucking like conglomeration of the music and the band and the audience that really appealed to me about punk rock, and that I tried to bring to Junkyard.
Which is exactly what you brought, because I just remember this guy with blonde hair, a vest, and the Roxy. His face is turning red. He's gonna have an aneurysm. This is fucking fierce. Because punk rock, I guess, was too much for me growing up, because you had to pick a team in the town. You had to be a Old Bridge Metal Militia kid into Metallica and Anthrax. You could like glam rock, Kiss, Aerosmith, or punk. You had a skateboard, and you I think on the West Coast and even Texas, you guys could mix a few more things. You had to pick. It was like Bloods and Crips where I grew up. Pick a fucking team.
That may be why I never. I got a foothold on the East Coast thing. I mean, Minor Threat obviously was huge in Austin, and getting Brian Baker in the band was like, I was like fanboy.
Yeah.
Well, I still am. I still talk about that. Like, yeah, Brian Baker from Minor Threat's in my band.
Yeah.
And it's punk rock hierarchy. It's it's cool.
And it's just the fierceness and ferociousness with the realness. I think the main thing is the realness. I mean, I saw a lot of guys that I played with in my circle towards the Sunset Strip when it went away. Pretend they grew up on punk. It was a weird movement to pretend they grew up on punk rock when you knew they didn't. It was a weird thing. You know what I mean? That you could tell someone that really has, and like you say, when you talk about the kid with this Camaro, that's like basement time as a kid is where really things in smaller town, not that Austin's a small town, but like sitting doing mess with Michael Drager, listening to Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic, and then fucking Hendrix is really where, with one little PV amp, that's really where my mind got twisted in the music. And then you go to if I was to Hollywood, like kids that grew up, there was so much to do. We didn't have anything other to do than fucking wait for the mess to hit us and listen to fucking tapes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was crazy, man. Well, Dave, thank you so much, man. Your music means so much, and it's so cool that you showed up. People are gonna flip, man. I was like, this has got to happen, man. So many people ask about you.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out. We do have a single coming out in a month or month and a half. I'm not sure. I'm the wrong person to ask about anything like that. But and we're working on an album. We got about 2/3 of it written. So we should be having something new out by end of the year, I hope.
Awesome. Well, so I know you hate technology. So what I'm going to do, that's why I didn't even bother you with this. I'm going to have all your stuff running in the thread, all the links. You don't got to bother me. I don't got to bother you. I mean, I'm going to have all the links, because man, the shirts, the music, there's so many places to go with Junkyard. It's a way of life, man. And I love it. I'm proud to wear my vest.
Well, I see the end, you can't do this forever. And I'm working on like second tier cult status at this point. That would be good enough for me.
It is, man. It is. It's no, when dude, even paying the lady, Jesus, she hit me for like fucking $50 to sew that. It was more expensive to get it sewn on than to buy the patch. But just even that you guys make the back of jacket patches, what rock band, and I don't mean the label, is smart enough to do that? It's just so fucking cool, man. It's just
I thought people did that.
I don't know anybody that I haven't seen it, you know what I mean? Like, or done it right when it came and it was right, you know what I mean?
Well, cool.
It's just such cool stuff. The music, the new music, and so you said a new album's coming out pretty soon?
Yeah.
Man,
should be good.
And are you guys recording in the same place, or
most what we do is because my guitar player Tim has a little office where he does music for like soundtracks and stuff, and we do most of the vocals there, and some of the guitar, the rhythm and stuff. And then we go into we'll find a studio to do drum sounds, because we want a real live drum sound, and guitar. We'll do lead guitars and stuff in a bigger place to get a more ambient sound. I talk like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. But
no, it makes sense. Yeah. And Tim's a great dude. I met him with you at the Rainbow. What a great dude. What a great member, man.
Yeah, he's he filled Chris's shoes nicely, which is, as far as, I need somebody like, I've been blessed with good songwriters and it helps a lot. And he's very talented. So
Yeah. And he captures the spirit, man. The spirit's there on top of everything, man, with that dude.
yeah, we've known him since. I mean, his band Broken Glass played with us all the time back in the day.
Yeah.
And we were, close friends back then. So he started writing with the band actually in '91. So he's had his fingers in the Junkyard pie for a while.
Yeah.
So he understood what we were about, and he's kept us true to that mark.
Isn't it funny? I was saying that about, like, sometimes guys join a band that understand the concept of the band more than the guy. Like Tommy Thayer joining Kiss, I believe he understands Kiss more than the guys in Kiss. Or John Frusciante understands the original Chili Peppers concept more than the Chili Peppers.
It's probably maybe a little, you can be a part of it, have a little more bias coming from the outside, maybe, and a little more perspective than the guys that have been, honed in on it the whole time.
Yeah.
So it probably gives us a fresh perspective in keeping it in line with the what it is, the purity of it,
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much, Dave. I'm gonna hit say goodbye to everybody. I'm gonna hit stop. And
thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the road soon.